This is Castleward Farm in Braddon, stretching from Noble's Hospital through to St George's Bridge. From the Millennium Oakwood Park past the ancient Castleward Fort steeped in history and along the River Glass. Since 1989, Alf Kane has wanted to allow access to the public through this area in the form of several initiatives, including a network of footpaths providing a missing link in the Millennium Way and access up to the hospital. A beautiful and serene walk of woodland and river meadows just a short stone's throw from Douglas. The River Glass starts up in the hills and joins the Doo to become the River Douglas. In the 1800s it fed the mill pond for the busy linen and flax factory at Tremode. The sluice gates and weirs were constructed to typical Victorian standards and still exist today. The mill race is still there, although it is now overgrown and starves the mill pond of water in the summer months. DEFRA have had to rescue aquatic wildlife in the past years due to this. So why, do you ask, has this public access never been progressed? Well, despite Alf's dream, he has been plagued by erosion on his land by the river over the past 30 years to the point where he has lost sizable amounts of valuable farmland, and the erosion continues to this day. The reason for this is bad management and a lack of proper ownership by the Isle of Man government. The River Glass is one of 6 designated rivers on the island which provide drainage to the sea through highly built up areas. In the 60s up to the 90s, responsibility for this was firmly with the Department of Transport's Rivers and Bridges team, although since the establishment of the 2013 Flood Risk Management Act, nothing has actually been done. The Rivers and Bridges team used to inspect all our major rivers right up into the hills, clear away any trees or debris that could cause blockages and flooding in the winter. As the government has evolved into a top-heavy management structure, these skilled teams doing the actual work were disbanded in favour of contracting work out to private firms, and then completely abandoned. Now these rivers are left to go feral, and the subsequent debris that is washed downstream on an annual basis increases the risk of flooding. Instead of removing the cause of the major floods we see, government choose now to undertake costly and imposing capital projects to protect us from the flooding, not if, but when it happens. So back to our River Glass. As you can see here, a shingle bank has been allowed to form and has actually split the river and forced a new flow on the south side. The original path of the river was on the other side of this bank. Under the old government structure, the Rivers and Bridges team would have dug this out and the erosion would never have happened. As it is now, the south stream has eroded the banks where one of the footpaths would have been, so you can understand why it was never completed. Alf has requested several times to have the stretch looked at and repaired, but to no avail. The government simply are not interested. And worse still, they won't let the landowners maintain it themselves. Oh, you need a licence for that. Under normal common sense world, the gravel and stone will be removed from the river and used to build the path alongside it. Sounds logical, but for this government, not a chance. In the new world of licences, regulations and anything else they can dream up to facilitate yet more management and administration staff, that's what they will do. For every issue there is a civil service management position. This is the gravel bank in 2009, and as you can see it's been left to build up into a vegetation covered island in the river. The issues are more precarious downstream and illustrate our government's current priority of costly projects to defend us against the flooding that should not even be happening if they were actually doing their jobs. The floods in Laxey were entirely avoidable had the River and Bridges team still been in charge. All of the debris that caused the damming would have been removed the previous summer and would simply not have been there to cause the issue, apart from the digger in the river. But as they say, you can't fix stupid. This is how the river should be flowing, straight and even. But even here you see new growth on the river edge which will form gravel banks in the future, and yet more deviation and erosion as a result. It needs to be proactively cleared. And just further downstream, here we can see the trees physically damaged by debris hitting them in winter torrents. They are now rotting where the damage occurred and will end up in the river, creating more debris. The banks are in very poor condition all around this area. On the far side of the river, yet more build-up of stone and shingle, so the deviation in the river continues. Here, these trees will be pulled out of the banks and into the river to join the debris field. The triggers should be removed before they become a problem. This fallen tree was reported several months ago when it was 1.6 kilometres further upstream and has been slowly washed down the river, ready to become a future dam starter. Historically, Alf would have just removed this tree himself, but due to DOI involvement and threats of action, he is no longer willing to. This level of ignorance and contempt for properties downstream is inexcusable. Here the river has been forced into a torrent down the left-hand side, ripping into the bank and eroding behind a line of trees. Within a few years, these trees will join the debris party for another flooding dramode. This is not how a river prone to flooding should be managed at all. So this is the story of the River Glass, the abandoned public access and the travesty of river and flood mismanagement by the Isle of Man government. I was horrified to see this when I visited. Please let your MHK know what you think. Thank you.